All right, welcome back to the Junto, everybody. This is episode 26. It is Monday, March 9th, and I'm Noah Sawyer, the host of the Junto. So I got a new camera. I hope that it looks fine. I mean, it looks really good from here. I hope it is looking fine across the internet. I guess I can take a look real quick. Seems pretty good. Yeah, I mean, the camera is capable, of a lot more than what I'm doing with it, but my computer just overheats. It's a Mac Mini. It's really small and compact and is like, it's just this little aluminum case that gets really hot whenever you do anything, which kind of sucks. And that's kind of related to the subject of the show today, because I don't know. I mean, there's so many examples of this type of thing, and Apple is a guilty party, but most manufacturers of major electronics and automobiles, everything, they are not repair friendly. So that's kind of the subject of the show today. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. People say in the chat it looks good. Like, I think you can probably, well, I have this on the desk here. My friend made me this copy of a book, which is They Became What They Beheld, photographed by Ken Hyman and written by Edmund Carpenter, who I'm not really familiar with. And I guess Marshall McLuhan worked on this in some capacity as well, but I think I don't even really need to zoom in if you're on the highest quality setting to show you this, more or less. At least, like, you can get the idea. With my old camera, it was so screwed up that you really couldn't make much out at all. I guess I'll see this in the future, but I have this page marked because this is what it should be like in the Junto, where we're grinding and working on, we're doing our works. But yeah, hopefully that looks pretty good for you. Looks better than the last camera. Anyway, once again, I was not really sure what I was going to talk about, and that can be sort of overwhelming. I mean, it's easy to plan, but it's nice when something just feels very natural. And last night I was making pasta, and I called my mom, which is what you should do when you're making pasta. And it turned out that my brother was having trouble with his car, and he drives a Prius, and I drive a Prius, and I love working on the Prius. I mean, like, going back to the early 2000s, there were internet communities that are now archived or still active of people working on that car and doing a lot of DIY repairs, trying to get it to run even more efficiently too. That was a big thing in the 2000s. And yeah, so I've done some work on my car, and I've never had to change the coolant pump, but it was something I used to worry a lot about because it seemed like I was going to have to at some point. Like, there were lots of horror stories about it, and it's an old car. My car's like 20 years old. So, and the coolant was never changed by me or the previous owner. And anyway, so it was something I feared, but my brother has a slightly newer Prius, and it seems even easier to change the coolant pump on this one. So anyway, I was talking to my mom, and she said that, so I went over to check out his car today, and I have a diagnostic tool on my I have a MacBook, and in a virtual machine on my MacBook, I run Windows XP, and I run some software that is able to get a lot of detailed information out of the Prius and other Toyota vehicles, and it's awesome. And I like getting to use it because it gives such specific information. I'm not going to talk about cars the whole show, but like, if you have a basic OBD scanner, you can get some information. You can get kind of a lot of information if you have special process IDs from the internet, but you can get even more using the other software. So anyway, I went over, we got some pretty specific information, and so tomorrow or the next day, I'll try to change the coolant pump. And I just got this new camera, so I kind of am tempted to make like you know, a YouTube car tutorial video or just an example. But there's lots of those for this specific repair out there. But I think it would just be kind of funny, and it would be fun to get more familiar with the camera in case I ever need to know. So anyway, so maybe I'll do that. But yeah, other than that, everything's going good with the stream. I feel less overwhelmed by my workload trying to turn this into, I don't know, trying to spread the word, trying to make shorts and, I don't know, get some new people interested in this. And yeah, I mean, it's just like so much, especially when I actually do 4 shows per week. That's like 4 hours of a dense monologue about lots of different subjects. And it's just a lot to keep track of, but I think it's working out. I feel good about it. And I think by the end of the month, I will set up some kind of Patreon. I have some ideas for the Patreon because I'm a used bookseller, so I have tons of books. And I was like, well, it'd be nice if someone donates a certain threshold a month, I could like send them a book like nothing, and I could track or I could have like a really simple survey for all those patrons where it's like, you know, history, fiction, poetry, what ancient history, modern history, whatever, and I can just send a book like that to people because I've got a lot of books, and there's a lot of books in the world. I will never not be able to do that. So, and I also like to, I don't have an example here, but I like to, if I don't know, if I'm just kind of feeling lost or something, I have a notebook of things I've transcribed that like uplift me, I guess, or reinvigorate me. And it's things from, I mean, some of it's the Tao Te Ching, some of it's from various holy books, some of it's historical material just to remind me of the wideness of the world and where we came from. Like, I know there's like part of an Abraham Lincoln speech in there or something. And then there's like there's ancient Chinese stuff, Japanese stuff. And anyway, yeah. So another Patreon tier could be, it's been fun brainstorming this because I've got some stuff I think that I think I could make it interesting. But basically in that transcript book, if I'm really lost or if I'm just, you know, listless and don't really know what to do, I'll write those things because the point is to memorize them. The point is to sort of inundate myself with all of these positive linguistic realities of the human experience, and through that cleanse myself of all of the horrible ones that I'm inundated with. Like today, I was behind a bus. I was driving and I was behind a bus. And okay, I mean, maybe this is a term that people will know, but I do not know this term. And it basically, so we're at a stoplight, I'm behind the bus, and on the license plate, you know, it'll say like commercial or passenger or what's another one? City, I don't know. And so under the license plate stuff, it said jitney, and I don't know what that is. It might have something to do with the transit authority system. I mean, it must have something to do with it in Rhode Island, but it's not the name of the transit authority here. But basically, you know, I'm staring, I see right in front of me, I see this license plate. Under it, I see jitney. Under it, embossed in the part of the bus that kind of holds the license plate itself, it says something like Gillin, which I assume is the manufacturer of that part of the bus. Gillin, I think. And then in big letters, it says RIPTA, Rhode Island Public Transit Authority. And I was like, none of these words, none of these words are in the Bible. Like, I was just like, I'm just being hit with acronyms that I did not consent to be hit with these acronyms. And it's just like, I feel like that dulls my relationship to language when it's like you look around and you just see all these just like blunt code words, essentially. I mean, it could be stop on a stop sign. It means something, obviously, but you see it as a code. It's not really a word, it is a symbol. And then there's all these other like nonsense ones. And I'm like, I it made me feel a certain way. So anyway, bringing it back, I was thinking about how, oh yeah, well, I'll either handwrite those things that I want to memorize, whether they're prayers or whatever it may be, and sometimes I'll typewrite them because I have an electric typewriter, and it's the kinds that still has hammers. The hammers are just like thrown with electricity, that's the best type of typewriter in my experience because it's crazy. I mean, it's extreme. It's like it's whirring and it's just like it's so fast. If you have someone type on it and you like sit in front of it and face it and like look at the hammers, or if you got a camera shot like that, it just looks insane, really insane machine. Anyway, but yeah, so I'll typewrite those and I'll just throw them away or recycle them, and because the point is the process of doing that. But I have thought about how like it would be nice on my book stand or something to have a like a cup full of those, sort of like how people do bookmarks, but it would be wider and it would just be these things that personally I find inspiring. And yeah, so I brought it up because that is another thing where it's like, okay, for like $10 a month or less, I have no idea. I need to look into the logistics of Patreon, but it seems reasonable for 10. I can mail one of those things once a month. So books and that, and who knows? There's just lots of ideas going around with this stream, and I feel good about it. And so I guess let's get into the subject today. Yeah. And that subject is this concept of right to repair. And I'm not going to, there's not enough, but there is a lot of content on the internet about the right to repair. It's something Thomas Massey talks about as well. I don't know if he's, I think he's a senator, but a congressman. And I don't know what state he's from, but anyway, he's one of the people that does talk about right to repair. Lots of farmers have been interviewed talking about it because it causes a problem for them. And basically the concept is that when you buy something and own it, you should be able to work on it. That is your right to repair the thing that you own. And manufacturers of things, whether they are tractors or automobiles or cell phones or computers, those are the primary things that come to mind for me. They not only do they make it difficult for people to do that, but there is a whole sort of lawfare situation that attacks people who try to do that, so that they maintain a monopoly on the repair of those objects, even when you're buying them, even when it's your tractor that you use and that you need, and that many people rely on you using it because you're producing the food supply. So anyway, I'm not going to rehash all of that, even if it's the first time you're hearing about it, because there's better people than me to do that. And I think I will just try to bring in my point of view with respect to it. But I do recommend that you check it out, look into people who are advocating for the rights of people to repair their devices. I assume they must have something written about this, but a great website that I like is called, I think it's called iFixit, ifixit.com probably, but they are all about making electronics repair accessible for people. And I've used their tools and I've used their guides repairing laptops and phones, and they are great. So there must be a network that they sit within, a constellation of people in the United States who are trying to maintain the consumer's right to maintain the objects that they are purchasing and that they are using, instead of it being abstractly, instead of that ownership instead of that relationship of sorry, I'm not sure how to phrase this, like the instead of making that ownership relationship convoluted and unintuitive, where it's like, no, you can't fix this, you have to bring it back to us, who you bought it from, sorry. um yeah, more common than I would like, and perhaps more common than you would think. So um but yeah, I want to put my own spin on that a little bit and tie it into more like what we usually do on the show. So this is all early phase. This is all like early phase Junto. This is really, we're still figuring it out. And or well, I don't know, we're in the process of creating it. And what this period has been like is a lot of scratching the surface all over these different areas, whether it is music or cell phone addiction or dating apps or, you know, following politics. All of this stuff, we're just kind of, we're scratching the surface. We're not even priming it. We're like getting ready to prime it. And another way I think of it sometimes is like, it's sort of like casting a wide net, but the net is so wide that you're not really like casting it all at once. You're doing this extended project of like dragging this net, like, okay, now like next, probably later this week, we'll talk about music, one facet of music, because there's so much to talk about. And you know, today we're talking about repairing the object, so we're just like dragging it a little bit and a little bit. And I see, you know, maybe the first 100 episodes of this being this extensive dragging of the net over all these issues in our society. And the purpose is, and what the net really symbolizes, is an intellectual grasping of the complexities of all of those things and of our experience with relationship to those things, because it is undeniably complex. We live in the most complicated period of human history, and it requires some deep thinking, it requires some serious effort, and it requires lots of sinking in. You can't explain this to someone all at once and have them understand it. In fact, you can't even really explain it all at once. It's like a book that I quoted early on. It might have been in the first episode, Moise's Elements of Calculus, where he talks about the spiral process for writing this book. And he says, the central concepts of the calculus are deep. It is not to be expected that they can be learned all at once in the forms in which a modern mathematician thinks of them. Therefore, in this book, the more difficult ideas are presented in a series of different forms in ascending order of difficulty, generality, and exactitude. So it's a spiral process. These things are arising in different forms and in different ways over and over, and with increasing exactitude until it really makes sense and it really starts to sink in. And I'm not totally, I'm not an expert or totally fully read on any of the subjects that I'm talking about, but I am engaged seriously in trying to make sense of the situation that we find ourselves in, and that is something that's going to take years. And it is also going to take a lot of collaboration with other people, whether it be through the internet or it be through real life. And I have that going on, luckily, and like in both sides. And so, yeah, I'm doing this spiral process myself, but I'm also trying to present some of what already makes sense to me and what I already see, so that it's easier for other people to see it. So in casting this really wide net, it's like we're becoming literate in a particular way. It's like we are now able to, like book literacy, you see the words, you see the markings on the page, and you turn it into meaning in your mind. You bring the meaning to the book. The book itself does not have meaning, it has symbols, and you perceive the symbols, create the meaning. similarly, we all live in our society, and we go out in it every day, and we were raised in it, and we talk about it, and we're within it. It's the air that we're breathing. And yet, so much gets lost on us because we're really used to it, because we were raised in it, and we were raised in it by people who also didn't understand it, and they were raised by people who also didn't understand it. It's very difficult to understand. And, well, in theory, it would not be so hard to understand. But the way that our society and its economy and its like education system and its power structure have evolved over time has made it so that it is not geared toward helping people understand at all. I don't actually think it's that hard to understand if you're able to live in a way where you're trying to understand it with other people, you're making sense, you're researching, studying. However, we are in fact in the opposite situation. We're all overworked, and our leisure time has been colonized by habits that were normalized that are really bad for us, such as phone addiction, media addiction. And it starts atrophying our ability to make sense, to be logically coherent, to be articulate with what we want someone to understand when we're saying, or to be articulate with whatever it is we're trying to get someone to understand. So, anyway, yeah, so that's what the show is. It's like, let's cast this really wide net, and we'll be, as we get a handle on all of these different subjects, and as we see more and more clearly what is around us, and, well, one consequence is that we care a lot more about the people around us, and we recognize who we want to be building things in our life with, and who perhaps, I don't know, I think there's a lot of sympathy for other people that comes out of this too, because I think we're an uncharitable, judgmental society, very judgmental and pretentious, and, you know, maybe it's a defense mechanism, but no matter what it is, it sucks, and we do have to try to alleviate it and be kind to other people and understand where other people are coming from, because this is not easy for anyone. So anyway, so, you know, yeah, you get a grasp on all this stuff, and you see more clearly what you want to be doing with your life and what your friends want to be doing with their life, and you're working on this together. And then in theory, you know, it's like the net becomes stronger and stronger, and then ultimately we can, at least to a certain degree, you know, I don't know what it will look like in the future. It's just too unpredictable with our technological and political situation. But I'm optimistic about it in that I can imagine positive things happening in the future. And so, you know, we have this huge net out there over all these ills of our society that have camouflaged themselves by affecting our minds psychologically, by affecting our cognition and our ability to understand those things out there. And then we close up the net, we reel it in, and we throw it away. So you can get a bunch of that out of your life, and hopefully we can get it out of society entirely and move into, you know, the next century as human beings instead of as, you know, whatever we are being turned into, which is, you know, you could dwell on it, but things could go pretty bad, I think. Anyway, so yeah, sort of a preamble there about the show. And so with that in mind, I just want to talk a little bit about repair. Like I said, I'm not doing the whole, like, typical, I don't know, I'm not going to go through case studies. I think John, I guess I don't know. So allegedly, I recall years ago seeing John Deere being a big culprit of this with their modern tractors. But anyway, which reminds me, there's a good thing I don't want to forget for the end. So but maybe that'll be better on another day this week. So, all right. Basically, I want to draw attention to the cultural prerequisites that have begotten a society where there is an increasingly extinguished right to repair. So it's like, what did we have to be like in order for this to be taken from us in totality? Or, I mean, obviously, I mean, maybe some people will be like, actually, you can just buy stuff and fix it. And I don't know. I'm not going to address that right now. But we, basically, we lack a we lack a culture of repair, and we've been like fertilizing this culture of disposability and of one-time use and of getting things new. So with disposability, I think primarily of things like people who buy a coffee at a cafe every day and get it in a plastic cup every day. And I'm not saying that this person is psychotic or that they're, evil or anything, but to me there is something psychotic about doing that. And by psychotic, what I really mean is a detachment from reality. And I don't think that's too controversial to suggest, because it's like, if you drink coffee every day, shouldn't you have a thermos? And shouldn't the cafe take your thermos and fill it up for you? They do this in Montreal. Just saying. And because the thing about Canada and Montreal, like, not to glaze, but they are very similar to us, but they do certain things better. They have a lot of the prevailing major flaws that I think are a nightmare for humanity, such as a lot of like the deeper cognitive psychological consequences of the current stage of our techno-political situation. I think all that's there, and that is, it is what it is. However, there are random, like, little things where it's like, okay, well, we could at least just not be producing all this one-time use plastic trash, or all this takeout container trash. Like, I literally can't imagine how much there is every single day in the country. And that's so avoidable if we had, here's what I'm drawing attention to, a little bit of a culture of just not disposability, of understanding. It feels sort of toddler-like, where it's like, okay, well, this came from nowhere, and it's for me, and now I'm done with it, and it will go nowhere, so I will put it nowhere, and it will be gone. And that's normal. It's normal. I see it every day. And so that's really what I mean by a culture of disposability. And this is something a lot of people can change in their own lives, or even in their own workplaces, where it's like, I don't know, maybe at Dunkin' Donuts, they'd be like, no, we can't fill up your thermos. But the local coffee shop, if you bring in your thermos, I don't know, but I would think they're probably willing to just fill that up for you. And then, I guess you have to wash it later. And I guess you have to remember to bring it. And, I don't think there's anything too wrong with doing a little bit of, the daily round and remembering things. That sounds good, actually. That sounds like it might be good for everybody. And so, anyway, if I seem a little more upbeat, I started drinking Red Bull because I was like, I have to grind on all of these. I have to edit my videos. I have to make a plan. I'm running out of money. So, I've never been a caffeine drinker. Well, like, except on occasion, I've never been a daily caffeine drinker because I feel like it doesn't do that much for me. But someone gave me a Red Bull for free recently because it was just left in his fridge, and a month later I drank it and I was like, wait, this kind of rocks. I feel kind of great right now, actually. So trying to just bootstrap the behind the scenes functions of the stream for a little while with my Red Bull, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so we've got that disposability, and I just want, like, I don't know what the response to that might be, or if people might be like, what are you even, what's the end goal, or what are you asking people to do? And really, step one of all of this is like, we just shouldn't deny it. We just need to see it for what it is. We can see it non-judgmentally even, but we should see it for what it is, and we should see it concretely and singularly. And by that, I mean, like, literally, where did these cups come from? Literally, where did they go? Literally, like, where did it, like, who picks up the trash? What is the trash processing like? Does it get recycled? Does it go into a landfill? Is the landfill near here? Is it a state away? Does it go on a train and go 4 states away? I don't know. And it's different for every cafe. It could be different for every cup because it winds up somewhere else. And that stuff is just like, this is not Red Bull in the mugs though. It's just tea and water. One's water, one's tea. So anyway, yeah, the key here, like, judgment aside, no judgment. I'm a moral absolutist. I believe there's a moral law, and I will put it aside. And I will say, we just need to see clearly what is playing out in front of us. And a great place to start with this stuff is how much is just thrown away every day without reuse, and start thinking, literally, where does it go? Like, have someone in your friend group research where it goes. Just find out in your Junto, like, where does it go? Where does it come from? Will the cafe that I like fill up a thermos if I bring it? Will they? Some won't. Some will. And if yours will, why wouldn't you just do that? Plastic, we don't we have not seen the end of unknown consequences of plastic. So, and the preliminary results at this stage, they're not good. they're kind of alarming, actually. So sometimes I think, actually almost all the time, I think that I will probably die in my 30s of some sort of just mysterious cancer or just mysterious, just a new disease. I think, the fact that we have the blinders on so hard in the society, and we just keep innovating things, and and I'm not against innovation in theory. I'm against having the blinders on. I like innovation, but with the blinders off. So I wish people, and that includes moral blinders. Like I said, I believe in a moral law, and I think it has to be studied and taken seriously. Anyway, yeah, someone says in the chat, everyone should visit a dump or landfill at least once in their life, and that's true. I've been there. As a kid, going to the dump with my dad, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And it then, and then you see the covered landfills, the ones that are capped off. And I mean, another thing to study is just like what's the plan here? It's like there's just this bloated huge hill of land, and it's covered, and that's the strat. That's what we're okay. And it's obviously worse for nuclear materials, but that's just sort of that's more like I don't know. That would be, a little too off topic. It's fun to discuss, but that's almost like it feels trite. It feels like that's like the party question. That's like the party fact version of this, is to talk about like, where does the used nuclear material go? Well, where does your coffee cup go? That actually is more important right now, and for our purposes, probably forever, in our lives. But, anyway, so what else we got here? So in addition to disposability, is this push that there's been to create a culture of purchasing new. And I guess just before I move on, I want to phrase what I was just talking about a different way, because the past couple episodes I was talking about abstraction and generalization and categorization as these things that the human mind does that pulls us away from reality and can let us live in an ungrounded way where we don't necessarily know what we think or why we think it or what we're doing or why we're doing it or what's going on. And so, yeah, so all of that with respect to disposability, it comes from an abstraction from the source material. We are getting away from what that coffee cup really is. Like, who made it? It was made by a machine, but who was operating the machine? Who is overseeing the factory? It's like a person made this and now it's yours. And and you're going to throw that away. So anyway, just another, I wanted to make that connection because it'll keep coming up on the show. Anyway, so yeah, this purchase new thing has been pushed for a long time, like past 100 years especially, because there is this, Guy Debord has something interesting to say about this in the comments on the Society of the Spectacle. And he talks about, I haven't read it in a while, but he talks about pseudo needs of the society. Maybe it's in Society of the Spectacle, the proper first book, but he talks about the pseudo needs of the society. So you sort of meet the material needs of the society and then you start producing pseudo needs and you start manufacturing desires for so you produce pseudo needs and you satisfy those pseudo needs with commodities or experiences, controlled mode of the world, I guess, where it's a commodity is formed material advertised to you and presented to you and purchased by you. Whereas experiences, say, I always think of escape rooms because I'm like, a lot of businesses should not exist, period. Like, so many, I would love to run, like, I would love to be the guy who, like, business proposals come across my desk and I have a stamp that says yes, a stamp that says no, a stamp that says we need to have an interview or something. And all day I'm just like, no, like, you can't operate that business in these borders. You can't have an escape room in these borders. I'm sorry, sir. I know you have the money. I know these people want it. I'm sorry. You can't have the escape room. Sorry. All right. Go to jail. No. But it's horrible. I don't know. There's so many businesses that are like vanity businesses. It's eventually on the stream, I'll probably read the section of Kaczynski's Industrial Society and its Future where he talks about substitute satisfaction, because it's like we have these, it's a similar concept, what Debord is talking about and what Kaczynski's talking about. And it's like you're just manufacturing these energy outlets for people or these hobbies for people that occupy them. And it's a way of circulating their energy, basically. Anyway, so I don't have a ton to say about that particular thing about purchasing new, but I just want to emphasize that it is not rational. It is not moral. It is something that circulates money. It is something that is pushed upon us by the influence machine, the psychological influence machine of our society to get us to continue to spend money in particular ways. And the real troubling thing about it is the worldview that it generates for people, because when that is normal, when that's what your parents do your whole life, you think that's normal and that's what you're going to do your whole life. It begets worse and worse societies where people are increasingly detached from what the objects they own are, where they come from, and how to put them to a good use in their lives. Instead, it can be a lot of things, but one use is for entertainment, and you get bored of it, and that means you want to reject the object. You need a novel, you need a novelty to bring into your life. And then the cycle continues. Um, anyway, so, but that, what I said a minute ago um, about how I hate the service economy um, and the entertainment industry. Um, what I meant, or yeah, that sort of transitions into another thing that I wanted to talk about here, which is maybe maybe best illustrated by these videos I saw recently. It was just a reel that popped up on um, my feed. So I made a new Instagram, and it's American Junto. You can follow it. I'll be posting like clips from the show. So if you watch the show and you don't want to see short form version of the show, then I would not be offended if you didn't subscribe, or follow it. But I guess otherwise you should follow it. And like anyway, basically the algorithm was just throwing a whole bunch of random stuff at me because even though I had another profile, it was trying to see what I wanted curated on there. And it showed me something that I thought was great. And it was just basically it was in a small engine refurbished shop in India. And they were making these very nice, like, I don't know what you would call it, like almost like, um, I'm trying to think of the sort of more elegant word for refurbished, like when people fix up antiques or clean them up. It's sort of like I don't know, it's like a clean core thing where like they clean up these engines, they rewire them, they recoil the motors by hand, and it it was great, and it just demonstrates a know-how of like I know what is wrong with the motor in this ATV, like or say it's a brushed motor and the brushes wore down or whatever, and it's like I'm going to take it out and I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to fix what's wrong with it, and then I'm going to put it back in and it's going to run. And I was like, I would I wish that was even an option as a job here anymore. It used to be like, 50 years ago, you could probably find a guy to do that with, or, to apprentice under. But now, even though the know-how is so available, you could look up how to do that. You could very easily access the materials to do that, but there's no infrastructure for that. And when I say you can access the materials, it's kind of like an in theory thing, because it's not like increasingly people are having wealth just totally sucked out of them in this country. So there's limited options, even if there's market availability. And yeah, I was just like, man, if I had a son, I would love if he was doing this. Like that's just, I would love to be doing that. I just feel like I have other things to do right now. But that it's so nice to be, it immediately goes back into your community. It is so practical. It makes you adaptable, because you're like, well, if your stuff breaks, you're able to fix it. You have the tools available. Something that I think about quite often is how the older generations, like think of like boomers in America, they've accumulated a lot of wealth. Like it is a wealthy age group in the United States. I would think it's the wealthiest age group in the United States, but that wealth is so, it shows how those people are not able to think strategically at all about their situation in the world. It shows that they kind of have the blinders on with respect to their life in the world. I know so many of them, I interact with a lot of people in that age group, and like so many of them just go on infinite vacations. It's like, oh, you've been to Cancun? Oh, you've been to Cape Verde? Oh, you've been to Portugal? It's like, they're just, and a lot of those people have families, and there's sort of an individualism that has struck our culture that I think the nuclear family was a step within, and now it is even more atomized, even more separated, where people really don't think about another issue is the general secularization of our society, where it's like people don't have strong beliefs about what it is that we're doing here in the world at all. Some people do, but as a culture, we're very secular. And basically what I'm getting at is like, I think families should all be helping each other more in terms of wealth. And that is something that is so obviously, I mean, it's like a trope for that generation to their children, that they don't understand the world and also think that having their wealth in investments is more valuable than having a material investment. So this is what I'm coming around to here, where it's like, I really believe in material and human investment. I believe in having access to things that will be useful in your life, perhaps forever, like having the actual objects, not just having the capital to buy them in theory. So, and in terms of human capital, like doing things that take this moment very seriously and think about how best to work with the other people in your life and in your family to produce the futures that you all want and can agree on together as sort of a family strategy. I think that's something that the United States lacks, but other cultures have it, and other cultures that immigrate here, even you can see some of that within them until it is sort of separated out from them through the Americanization. And I'm not saying that's inherent in American values, but it is inherent in late 20th century American values for sure, and 21st. But I think it's something that needs to change. And there's a flip side of it too for millennials and Gen Z type people, like where they don't have a whole lot of money, but they also like spend money really fluidly. And so it's like two opposite problems, where it's like, okay, well, the boomers have all this money and don't know how to use it and use it like shit. And the young people have, well, I guess it's not really an opposite. It's just like the young people barely have any money and also use it like shit. And that's not everybody, but like, dude, just make dinner. Don't do DoorDash. You just have to, like, the difficulty is what builds you up in the future. It's like you need to, I've seen so many people in my friend group who have been like put into a hole by having access to the convenience of food delivery. And it's like, yeah, that convenience spreads throughout your being. It's not just the convenience of getting food after work and not cooking. It just starts to turn into a convenience of inner life entirely. You don't do the work of inner life that develops you as a person over your whole life when you are adjusted to do all these things that are convenient. So anyway, oh, yo, hey, Uncle Tom, nice to see you. My number one supporter. He was here day -5. He was here when I got the microphone stand for Christmas. So, anyway, I'm kind of, like I said, for a long time, we're just scratching the surface on these topics because I think people need a respite from the values of the world out there. And I think if we can have a little bit of access to that, that's what I'm trying to provide, because it gives you a break. It lets you realize, like, oh, all the people around me are crazy, but I'm not crazy for being uncomfortable living like this and wanting to live a different way. And that sort of brings me around to this idea where, like, I shouldn't laugh, but America is in the darkest period of its entire history. This is extremely dark for the United States of America. And there is such a nihilism in our culture, and also what do you call it? Like, it's like a lack of self-esteem related to learned helplessness, where people don't really believe they can even do anything. And that that needs to die with the millennials. That needs to be totally like that needs to be extinguished. Right to repair, leave it. Extinguish this nihilist, hedonist garbage, because we are in a this may be the darkest period in America's history. However, I've said it on the show before. We have um sorry. Oh yeah. So this this may be the this may be the darkest period in America's history, but we have access to novel things in this current century. We have access to novel technologies, and we're able to communicate with each other more easily than ever before. We can communicate all across the globe. We can access so much information. We can process a lot of information with now highly verbally intelligent software that is freely available. And it has its issues, but it can be used to liberate us in certain ways if we use it strategically and morally to try to build something with other people and build other people up and build ourselves up and make ourselves stronger and more adaptable as time goes on. So I really think, and that's sort of there's like this extended childhood thing that happened with Gen X and the millennials. I mean, Gen X, like there are guys like this. I mean, like Reddit Gen X guys, but uh, like I'm thinking of the extension of the childhood into adulthood, where it's like, okay, let's never become adults. And that's common with millennials. It's like you turn 18 at 30 now. And that also, I think, needs to be seen for what it is and cut out entirely by the young people right now. I think young people need to actually embrace adulthood and embrace serious projects and embrace like, no, I am going to change the world. I am going to figure all this shit out. I am going to take religious questions seriously. I'm not going to deal with secular, like, just, Reddit type shit. I'm going to explore all the logical boundaries of those questions, and I'm going to let it help me guide myself through this world with the other people around me. And I'm going to work with other people. I think that's what's in. And there's, you see, I'm not into astrology, but for years and years, you always hear that thing about like, oh, your generation's going to have this huge, spiritual shift in the way that society functions. And it's like, here's the worst thing about astrology, which is using it to predict the future. I think there's some merit to using astrology to get a picture of your personality and then dialectically engage with it, where you're like, no, this is wrong about this, but it's right about this. And it's more importantly than all of it, it is giving me language to understand how my personality works within me and where my drives come from. I think that's valuable, and I think we all have to learn to articulate that stuff. So if astrology is used as a stepping stone in that way, I don't really think it is immoral, but it is risky. And, when I say immoral, it's like, I think it's dangerous for you. I don't think you're going to hell because you like do astrology or take it seriously. I just think if you put yourself in that position, this is sort of the concept of near occasions of sin, where it's like if you put yourself in that situation and say it knocks it out of the park and you're like, wow, this shit is real, you run certain risks. And those risks may be believing it even when it's wrong, or taking it prescriptively, which is kind of the same thing, where you're like, oh, well, I don't even really know the astrology terminology well at all, so I can't fake this, but, I'm ascendant Pisces, so that means, which I'm not, by the way, but so that means I'm like this. You're using an artifact and saying, I'm like this, instead of exploring, what am I like? And using that as a tool to be like, what am I like? Who am I? And you need to be deciding that on your own terms. The other danger, and I have friends who are really into astrology, and I mean none of this as shade to them, because they understand. So anyway, like, the other danger is using it to predict the future, or be like, oh, this is why this happens to me. It's because something's in retrograde. I think that's very dangerous because it takes you away from why things are happening to you. We live in a world where we can investigate the causes of things and make sense of them. And I think it's dangerous to start thinking too much about stuff like that. So, similarly, I just want to comment on that because people talk about it where it's like, we're entering the age of whatever. I don't know if it's, I don't know. I don't follow it. But people say that there's going to be some sort of revolution in how the society functions, and that specifically this generation of people are going to be involved in that. Like, we're all, maybe it's related to Pluto or something, which is just like all the way out there. So we all have it in common if we're born in like a 10-year span. I don't know. It's my guess. And so the danger in thinking about stuff like that is taking it for granted and thinking that you don't have agency in that, when in fact it is the total opposite. You should basically ignore the possibility. You should take it as a, I don't know, do what you want with it, but I don't think it should be taken as the facts of what is going to occur. And I think you have to instead pretend it all depends on you and the people around you, because that is what it comes down to, and that's what you have agency over in your life. And you can upgrade that agency, you can degrade that agency by participating in the norms of our culture at various levels. Like, if you doom scroll all day, you're going to be degrading your agency. You're going to be creating desires in yourself that are not really your own. They're manufactured. They're the product of all of these images and words and sounds entering into you and being integrated into your being and guiding the process that creates you as time goes on. So, yeah, or you can upgrade yourself through an intense investigation of life itself. And that means life within you, life as an existential question, as, what are we doing here? What happens to us after we die? What are we doing here? What is anything doing here? And also historical cultural questions where it's like, what is going on? How does power work in my world? Why can't I do the things that I think would be righteous to do? Why can't I even do the things that I think would be good? Never mind the things that I think would be pleasurable or desirable. Why can't I even do, like, I don't know, why is there like a force field or like, a vector field of force pushing you away from doing all the things that would be good for the world? Such as, one example is giving money to homeless people or something. Like, the norm is to be pushed away from that, to think, don't do that. Don't do that. What if they talk to you? Don't do that. And it's like, well, actually, what if they talk to you and it's a great interaction and it brightens your day and their day because everyone's been ignoring them for months? So, yeah. Anyway. Let me see if there was anything else I really wanted to get into here. Yeah, no, there's one more thing. I'll bring it back around to, the title the title of the stream, which is that, speaking of things being pushed away from us and denormalized, like it's not normal to give to homeless people. It's not normal to repair your own equipment. It's not normal to fix your own computer. Just buy a new computer. Even get a used computer. Who cares? But don't fix your computer. All of that stuff. And like, get a professional, get an expert. It applies to so much. It applies to our health. It applies to really everything. It applies to our families. It applies to, like, okay, well, I was raised a certain way and I'm going to raise my kids in the same way. I'm going to just pass down what I know. But obviously it's all morphing over time. None of us are exactly the same, and our situations are certainly not exactly the same generation to generation. But people can, it's interesting to see, children of some of the greatest people you ever met. And again, you never know what's going on in a house, basically. But this this is possible. So not everything comes from the harm of the parents, because there's a lot of harm of the society as well. There's lots of harm from the society that affects the child as well. So say you have really great parents, and yet their child just becomes sort of a hateful person. Well, there's lots of influence from without, where it's like, even if you like like husband loves the wife, wife loves the husband, they both love the child, and they're trying to do everything right, you're bringing that child into a world that in a certain way hates it, and it's going to learn certain things in that way. So we all have different personalities and we all have different experiences, and some people, like, it it creates norms despite your best efforts, even as someone who created that person. So you're not alone when you create that person. Anyway, to bring it over here, like, it sort of relates to, I don't know how clearly I made that. Like that urge to, let me think for a sec here. It's sort of, it relates to the urge to buy everything new and the expectation that you have to buy everything new, because that urge requires that you discountenance, you look away from the thing at hand, and you also neglect what you really want, and you neglect the strategic plan that you could make to get what you really want. And there's obviously, I'm putting some implications on this example because it's such a broad example. It's a theoretical new thing that you're buying, but a lot of the time the new things that we're buying, we don't need them. So that's the more specific circumstance I'm talking about here. And so you, similarly with parenting or being raised in a certain way by the society and taking the society as normal, you learn to not think about what you really want in bringing life into the world or acting in the world. You just sort of take for granted that you received these things that you have to go and do, whether it is buying a new thing or creating life, having a child. And I sort of drifted in this example because now I'm thinking of the descendant of the, say, great parents raising a child and doing it poorly because they just don't have this reflective capacity to understand or search for what they really want in their experience of life. So, a little rambly, sorry about that, but thinking out loud here. And and it sort of relates to society even more broadly, because we're all inheriting this society. And so you could even throw the astrological projections up there too, where it's like, oh, we're in this society and I take it for granted because it is that which I have, and I'm not going to assess what's really out there or what's really in here and try to change it. I'm just going to operate. I'm going to operate the way that I'm already adjusted to. And then maybe you have the hopes in the clouds or beyond the clouds with astrology, but it's never going to materialize if people don't actually do the work. So yeah, that's what the show is about. I think the show should, I think we need to become people who have no blind spots and who are highly intelligent and are using every tool at our disposal. Sorry. I think we should have no blind spots and we should become very adaptable. I think we should become very intelligent, use every tool available to us to become, really, there's a highly defensive aspect to all of this, because we are being affected by things that we don't understand. Like when you are seeing ads all the time and seeing media all the time, or say you scroll for 3 hours a day, it's like that is really affecting your worldview, and it's affecting who you are as a person, and it's affecting it. Here's the thing about the worldview. The world's not just In one sense, the world is just out there, sure. But as far as you're concerned, the world is not just out there because you are the mediator for your experiences. And as your worldview gets molded, the world itself and your perceived possibilities, your perceived options for working within it literally change. The world literally changes to you. It's the same out there, but that never really matters. It's all about your relationship to the world. So anyway, yeah. Yeah, someone says in the chat, there are so many actors on our consciousness. We need to protect ourselves from that. There's so much we can do to learn about it and to help each other defend ourselves and build ourselves up and start operating like, can we start operating like we own the place a little bit, and like like Israel doesn't in the current Iran war. That is just really, it's just such an insanely stupid situation. There's no, it's embarrassing. I mean, it's obviously, it's been I don't know. I don't want to go on a whole other tangent. I think I'm going to call it here, but you know, I'll see you tomorrow. So I'll be back. I'm excited about the new camera. Looks good. So like the video, comment on the video if you want. Let me know what you think, and subscribe, hit the bell, tell your friends, follow American Junto on Instagram. And I've never had TikTok. I've never looked at TikTok on my own device, but I will soon. I will this week, because I'm going to start posting reels on there. So, or TikToks, I guess they would be. And yeah, it'll be interesting. So yeah, thanks for checking it out. Tell your friends, and cool. All right, well, yeah, see you tomorrow. Okay, well, here's the thing. I didn't know about daylight savings time, and I was up. I thought it was, I really thought it was like 2 in the morning, and then I looked at the clock, and it was like 4:40 in the morning, and I was like, this is literally impossible. Like, how could this ever be possible? But then I noticed that my analog clocks were wrong. So, yeah, so, you know, this wound up being at 10. It's getting light outside longer. I might just change the show to 10 for the summer. It's not the winter anymore. We'll find out. So I will start a like preview page for the stream, and it will have the time written on it. It'll say it either starts at 9 or starts at 10. And yeah. All right, great to hear from you guys, and thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.